Noche del 12 de febrero, fiesta de la Candelaria, una ventana, un lucero y un ritmo mestizo y paria. Noche del 12 de febrero, fiesta de la Candelaria, una ventana, un lucero y un ritmo mestizo y paria. Mira que el niño no acabe, sal muchacha que no calle, que todo el pueblo ya sabe que te está creciendo el talle y los senos no te caben en tu vestido de calle. Y los senos no te caben en tu vestido de calle. En la Candelaria cuando llegará.
Okay, so it turns out I just became the host of this panel. Thank you very much.
Welcome home, lad.
This is gonna be fun. Yeah, someone's missing. I'm taking over.
My good man, can I co-host with you, sir?
Let's go. So what are the barriers of adoption? And first of all, we have to define adoption before we get into the debate.
Well,
so what does adoption mean to you?
I would say actually using these systems to transact, like actually accomplish something with utility, not just sitting on your ass and holding them.
I think HODL's adoption, but I think we can do a lot better. I mean, it can't just be HODL, right? Spending is a key piece, but that's where the challenges are, so. Yeah.
Ray?
The biggest problem in the world has always been economic apartheid, at least for the past 80 years, really. And we've had problems with money for a while. People that have the money aren't spending it. The normal people can't really move the money around between each other across borders. It's nearly impossible, mostly through over-regulation, which is actually something intentionally done to keep third world nations or developing nations always developing, never quite making it, never able to break free. So we have to figure out store of value. Yeah, you got to get that first, but guess what? When Bitcoin hit $1, it was already a store of value. After that, it's all about making money flow. That is the whole point of money. You want to be able to save it, but if you can't spend it, it's not real. And no one wants to solve that problem. When you do, the entire might of the US Navy is now focused at you. All of NATO wants you, just like they wanted Muammar Gaddafi, because he tried to build an alternative system to make the money flow. It was actually based on gold, and gold holds its value well, but primarily it was about making the money flow with a development bank to power it. So as we can see, this is the hot button issue. It's the hot button issue. Adoption means people are using it to move money around the world in places where they can't right now, because their banks, even their mobile wallets, anything that a regulator, aka a suppressor, can touch, will continue to weaken those inroads and avenues for the normal people until commerce is strangulated and we're even poorer than we are now, eating bugs in our little 15-minute cities, praising our overlords at every conceivable moment without a single brain cell to rub between us. You're not going down like that.
Sir, I've only asked you to define adoption.
I did so. There's a bit of drama in the way, I concur. There is a bit of drama in the way, right? But the question is, man, why has anyone done this so far? It's 2024. We have all this technology, and we still can't send money as easily as sending email. Man, we're fighting wars here. So adoption doesn't just mean people using it on a day-to-day basis to move money around the world and across borders. It means, you know what it really means? A massive increase in the productions of the global south. Because once commerce can happen across borders, especially in places like Africa, where the banks don't work, you can't send money to the country next door over the banking system in Africa. It just doesn't work. And there are 55 countries, all in a little broken financial prison. And even the mobile payment methods, like the mobile wallets, like M-Pesa, they don't work across border either. It's a real problem, right? Everyone has to understand the nature of the problem, why we haven't solved this yet. Because there are huge forces that don't want this problem solved. So we got to go in here also requiring that we kick their ass in asymmetrical warfare. That's another requirement I must hold down.
Amir, how do you define adoption?
Yeah, I was going to say we need like a huge network, and I don't mean, you know, like we've made a product and then, you know, normies are using that to buy coffee, you know, and, you know, when I mean a massive network, I mean, you know, we've built a thing, people are all part of that. And, you know, we have DAOs, we have billions of dollars in those DAOs, and we can build stuff, and we can move together, and we can strategize, and we can change things that way, you know. He mentioned Gaddafi. Gaddafi, he tried to get all the Arabs to unite together. And there's a famous talk of his where he said, a famous quote where he says, he's been arguing in the Arab Council, you know, the Saudis, all those guys, you know, they're just corrupted by money, and they're continually backstabbing each other because, you know, the US and Henry Kissinger, they deliberately engineered that to keep them weak, to keep them divided. And he's exasperated because he's been arguing, and, you know, he keeps, you know, making gestures of goodwill, and people continually backstab him, and he goes, oh, us Arabs are our own worst enemy. And he got fed up with the Arabs, and he went to the Africans, and he started to get the Africans to unite together, and that was why they murdered him. And you can see a video of, and if you want to know how sick these people really are, you know, if you have to kill Gaddafi, fine. You know, if it's your enemy, and, you know, you've got some, you know, struggle for power, and, you know, you killed the other guy, okay, I can kind of accept that. But there's a video of Hillary Clinton after Gaddafi died, and Gaddafi died a brutal death. Like, they were like the most savage animals that knifed him up his anus, like slowly, agonizing death. And the video, and Hillary Clinton is called "We Came, We Saw, He Died," and that's a quote that Hillary Clinton says on TV. You can find it on YouTube. She goes, "We came, we saw, he died, ha 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 ha," and she's like so happy. She's like really happy someone died a savage death. So that's terrible. It's a terrible thing when any human being dies. Even if you have to, you feel sadness that life was lost. You don't enjoy it. Because you can see this like supposed feminist hero is just a complete psychopath. These people are sick. Like, and there's a reason why we as human beings, when we see someone that has absolute power, we feel like a natural revulsion to them, because that absolute power, it creates, it makes people, like it corrupts people. And that's why there's this quote which is like, you give any anarchist absolute power, and within a week it'd be worse than the Tsar himself. And this is the situation with these elites, where, you know, they do rituals. You know, maybe they think those rituals are edgy, but there's some meaning behind that, and it's like anti-society. It's like anti-humanist. So these are the forces that we're really up against. And cryptocurrency is a powerful technology. It's a technology that we can cast a spell, and that they cannot defeat that, because it uses the power of Mother Nature, which is mathematics, which you can't break mathematical truth. It's fundamental. So, you know, when we talk about adoption, what we really mean is, how do we get powerful as a network, as a community, as a movement? And a key part of that is, you know, the ideas, the philosophy, you know, restoring the social, moral, and political fabric. Because the way that they rule us is by liquidating society, by eliminating morality and politics from society. So adoption in terms of technology is like, okay, we've really changed things with that. We've really allowed people to come together and to become a new front, a new force. As Satoshi said, we can win a new front in the struggle of freedom.
That's right, my brother. No one could have said it better than Amir Takki. He made some really graphic scenes right there. The leader of this once great country where no one had to pay any kind of bill at all and everyone was happy, ended up being knifed to death in his anus by Hillary Clinton's goons. Couldn't write that in a comic book, but that's our reality. So, clearly they can exercise a lot of political pressure if we're successful. And that's the thing. Are we really ready to be successful? Yeah, I'm ready. That's why I'm here. I want us to actually do this. I want that money to flow, because guess what? We don't have to worry about how they're going to attack us. They're already attacking us with everything they have now in this way. And they move slowly. So you at least have a window of 4 years to make something happen. I believe we have 5 up until now. But let's not misuse the time. You only have 5 years left till they lock this thing down, everyone. But it's going to be all right. All right.
Right, so usually when we speak about adoption, what people bring up, I think I'm going to spin that speaker a bit because it generates feedback. Yeah, nice. I think that's a good idea. Also maybe this one. Because that's why you get that humming sound. It's the way physics work, you know. So
the Count Dracula Bitcoin is a brilliant man.
Usually when we talk about adoption, people bring up this argument that it's been 16 years since Bitcoin got launched and about 10 since Monero got launched, and we're at a level which is not really satisfactory in terms of adoption. You can't really go and spend your coins anywhere. You're still using gift cards and workarounds, and the economy is still P2P among believers. But we didn't get to that point where you can actually use Bitcoin or Monero as money anywhere you need.
So, I mean, I think there's, just to ground this a little bit, there's different places, and different places have different needs, right? So I think anything north of the United States, north of the border, Europe, it's very obvious to me that their priorities are different. You know, I think that they have good banking, they have good stable currencies, or at least perceived to be the sort of the standard against which to measure value. And so they don't really need the payment stuff that much. They need privacy, right? So Monero is a big thing in North America. And they want to make money, so we have all this ETF stuff with Bitcoin. In Latin America, what I see is Tether adoption. And it's not like you can pay anywhere with Tether, but it's, as far as the crypto sort of data that I've seen, 70% of it is Tether. And it's not Tether on the best network or anything, it's on Tron. Because it feels cheap and it feels fast, and it doesn't matter that it's not really secure, and that it actually starting to get a little bit more expensive. That's what people use, right? And I don't know what the barriers are. I mean, Ray, you say that there's powerful interests that are keeping adoption from happening, but I don't what do we have examples, flashpoints of conflict with the powers that be, where a rising sort of emerging app or bank or technology for adoption gets smacked down?
Well, if I could cut in real quick, Ray, it's a mental barrier. That's the attack they're making right now. And the best place you can see that is Bitcoin. This narrative that it's a stock, it's an asset, you should just invest in it. And that's the purpose of it, completely downplaying that it's actually usable for something, that you can transact, you can build parallel economies outside of the current system. And Amir, your talk yesterday, you put it perfectly. Your average person maybe 5-10 years ago wasn't really thinking about how fucked up and how manipulative governments in the current system are, but they're starting en masse to wake up to that now. But you still have this mental barrier of pigeonholing Bitcoin, and by proxy, to most people, most of the things in this space as just an asset, a stock. You buy it, you watch the price go up, and then you sell it. And that's the purpose of it. And it's just mentally limiting in people's minds, what we can do with this shit.
Yeah, the mind virus aspect is huge, and that's just one way he outlined. Like, anyone here ever grow up in like a bad neighborhood? Around like a rough neighborhood, rough people, kind of ghetto, you know? I did too, you know, in New York City, Hell's Kitchen. And when you grow up in that environment, you kind of build this artificial ceiling for yourself. You don't really give yourself permission to excel. You know, I saw that a lot with the people around me. That's huge. It's like a colonization of the mind. And in Africa and places where I was born, like Egypt, it's massive as well. Africans don't help each other. You know, Muslims don't help each other, right? Like, these are things that disappoint me about my people. Arabs sure as hell aren't helping each other. They're too in love with those air-conditioned Aston Martins. But I shouldn't be a hater, huh? Everyone's not strong enough sometimes. Yes. Sorry, bro, you're right. The mind virus is the main thing, but what is, like, you asked a question, Juan. What have there been any examples of these network states that actually broke away? And there have been. Facebook, 2 billion users. All they needed to do to become a network state was a payment rail, right? And they had one on Libra. Anyone here remember Libra on Facebook and all the talk? And then what happened? It got shot down by the regulators. But wait a minute. Exactly. Isn't Facebook like the most spook company you can even think of? They don't have a back door, they have the front door. I mean, come on. And they shot down one of their own spook out. That gives us a huge insight into how much they're afraid of people just being able to trade with each other. Because if all these people in the global south on Facebook could trade on Facebook, their whole system of economic apartheid, which they're imposing so hard on places like Africa, would be wiped out. It'd be gone. They didn't want to lose it yet. They don't want to lose yet. That tells us a lot about like how they think and how important this is to them. That's why they did that to Muammar Gaddafi and the 59 other African presidents before him who were killed. And it's not just Africans. Brothers and sisters right here on this continent have been dying. Americans have been dying. Everyone that has gone up against the money machine, the beast of money, has failed. But now we can win. So Facebook couldn't do it because the spooks, hey, the biggest spook of all, Satan himself, said, hold on a moment. Them dark people are going to get rich too fast, so slow down, boy, out. But a company came along and actually did it, and that was Binance, right? When it was just a shitcoin casino, Uncle Sam didn't care. But once their wallet really started having inroads, on-ramps and off-ramps, especially to the global south, and it was like a universal wallet too, you can transact for free on it, internally on Binance. Once he added a peer-to-peer, which he, you know, got for me, actually, because I went and started my company, we did a deal. He just copied the whole platform, but he built a really good P2P. In fact, it was so good, Uncle Sam was like, oh, wait a minute. No way. This boy is trying to disrupt the rails right now. So slow down there, boy. Come over here. Come to America. Give us that $8 billion. 4 months, he got off real easy, but he had to actually give up the company. They took over Binance, the DOJ, the U.S. government, basically put a compliance monitor in there, they call them. And this person cannot be overruled by anyone, not even the CEO, not even the board. First thing this U.S. compliance monitor did, stopped Pan-African trade on Binance peer-to-peer. He didn't stop Pan-Latino trade or Indian trade, but especially African trade. Nigerians can only trade with the Nigerians. Kenyans can only trade with the Kenyans, etc. So it's not just a conspiracy theory. Anyone that tries to do this gets taken to the machine and become a big enough threat. CZ made some mistakes. Number one, he still thought he could do business with the West. Number two, he didn't leave enough money on the table. And I believe those two things are clues in this search to crush the barriers to adoption, to form the ultimate battle plan, which will allow us to saturate the global south at maximum capacity until fiat only becomes the alternative, and crypto is seen as the good, halal, and efficient way to transact everywhere.
So you said, what were the softwares that were shut down by the government? There's been a lot of software. The very first Bitcoin stock exchange, GLBSE, had to shut down due to enforcement action. Local bitcoins, which was the peer-to-peer trading where you could get cash, they were forced by law to add KYC, and then they were forced afterwards by enforcement to shut down. Ross Ulbricht, he was put in jail for double life. He was obviously made an example of to send a message to people because the sentence was completely disproportionate. You know, there's even been people dying in suspicious death. You know, like Mushagin, McAfee, etc. You know, but I don't want to get into conspiracy here. But there is constant pressure, and you know, you can see people, you know, outright being killed or, you know, put in jail. But there's many tools that they use to put pressure. And right now, our activity as DarkFi is essentially illegal in Europe. We're not allowed to operate in Europe. We're in Switzerland because we have an agreement with the government. But, you know, there's the spaces where companies are, and you kind of see which projects have the most pressure, which is usually projects around anonymity, which are user-friendly. So that's the thing that they're most afraid of, is, you know, giving people full access to their freedom, anonymity, sovereignty, censorship, resistance, but that is easy to use for most people, because, you know, they want to keep their people, you know, blind, in servitude. But, you know, like, for example, like when you're operating in the privacy space, let's say there's some activity that you want to do as a, you know, you, for example, want to do a token sale. There's a ton of laws, and, you know, you need to work with jurisdictions, and you need to talk with lawyers, and there's a continual fight where they're closing off pathways, and lawyers are researching to find new pathways. And it's like, you know, they continually, like, you know, they go after jurisdictions. For example, recently there was Operation Choke Point, which was about shutting down the crypto industry. That was what rallied crypto people to fund Trump's campaign, essentially, because, you know, they fucked with cryptocurrency. Anyway, so there's a lot of that happening, actually, a lot of that oppression. Even I, as a founder, do not have absolute free speech. I cannot, you know, I cannot express certain opinions, which those certain opinions may or may not be what I believe. But, you know, if I say that speech, I will go to jail. They will literally send me to jail. You know, there are laws such as, you know, if there's a software and a guy advertises that software, or, you know, gives an example which he might not agree with that use case of the software, but he gives an example of that software being used for illegal purposes, and he just gives it as an example of something that, you know, it's enabled by that platform, but it's not something he can necessarily stop. But he says, you know, this is maybe how people might use this software. You know, that can be considered criminal advertisement, and he goes to jail. So there's a lot of that happening in cryptocurrency. You know, Monero, I recently spoke with a token scientist. Oh yes, thanks. I recently spoke with a token scientist, and, you know, he explained to me that the data shows that in Monero there is a very large inflow of people going into Monero to make transactions on the dark web. And this is very strange because, like, normal theory, tokenomic theory says that this should lead to, you know, a very strong price growth. But actually, there on the exchanges, what you can view is like, or what he says he can see is that there's very large short positions that are open. So there's an active, possibly state level price suppression happening on Monero. So that's very suspicious. But okay, let's talk about adoption. So there's two things here, right? One thing is, you know, being wealthy. and the other thing is being rich. So when I talk about wealth, I mean the, economics in the old sense of the word, oikonomios from Greek, ancient Greek, means household management. It wasn't concerned with accumulation of, coinage, which is what the Romans redefined economics as. So it was like, is our life, like our society, is it healthy? Is it good? Does it provide the things that people, require to have a good life? So if we look at this venue, it's very nice. It's a very nice atmosphere. We have our basic needs satisfied. It's an Ahndres network. That's a kind of wealth. So if we're able, to exist in our system, and we're using Monero or whatever, and we're able to buy good quality food, that's not loaded with pesticides, or we're able to have a good social life, or get nice clothes, like comfortable, good clothes, and we're able to live a good life. That means we're wealthy. But we live in a neoliberal system which is ruled by the prevailing powers that be, and maybe I can buy my fruit and veg from an agorist community. Maybe even I can source repairs to my car, but can I get semiconductors for computers, like stuff that is so extremely specialized that it's in the hands of like this single global supply chain that's controlled by and that's when we talk about needing money and being rich, which if we really want to be able to be autonomous, we're going to need access to high level of technology, and that's why we need resources. So then when we ask, like, okay, like how can for example Monero pump enough, or like the price be strong enough that we have access to that amount of money that enable us to do things? When can we have like a DAO that has like in just this like room, has 100 million or $1 billion, and we can like collectively decide, oh, we're going to do this project. Now that exists in Ethereum, and part of why Ethereum got to where it is because it did make deals with globalists and elites, and it did kind of go, it had like some core slogans, which is like, oh, we're going to build the world computer, but they kind of were like, oh yeah, let's play the game, let's play the game, and they started the game, and they've become very rich from it. They've made a lot of money. There's literally so much like capital inside of Monero, but there is a lot of grift, and now they're realizing it because they're in like this slow kind of long and steady decline, where they have very little to show for it practically. Like practically what people can do, the main use case of Ethereum has been like a shitcoin casino, essentially. So they're like, oh, how can we wanted to create this vision in the beginning. We wanted to deliver something. How can we bring that back? And so, and I don't want to say Ethereum's bad or like shit on it, because I'm some guy that's criticizing Ethereum, and people can go to me like, oh, but what have you done, mister? Did you create an Ethereum? No. So, we're doing DarkFi now, and my aim is to show that we can do things a different way. And if I'm successful, the results will speak for themselves. If not, then I'll be like, we'd basically have to analyze where things went wrong, learn from the mistake so we don't repeat it. But now Ethereum's kind of like going, oh, now we need to pivot, but we need to make a hard pivot to having values, to not being a neutral platform. But they're kind of like realizing it very late, and they're kind of doing it in a very half-hearted way, where they're like, as he said, the Arabs, they're like, they can't stand up for their own sovereignty and autonomy, because they're really in love with their air-conditioned Aston Martins. You know, they really love like all the luxuries of, you know, the USA. Who's like, oh, you know, have this air conditioning, and they're like, they can't build any air conditioning, but they have this resource, the oil, that's very valuable, but they're giving it away essentially much cheaper than it is actually worth, simply because they don't have any. You know, they're like, it's like, you know, oh, you can, oh, if only you would like, you know, bow your head down to the master and like not complain. Master will like bestow his favor on you. And, you know, people are like, oh, you know, that's like the gilded slave versus like the you know, the poor but free man who roams wild in the nature, you know, where he's reliant on his instincts. And, you know, most of us are here because, you know, we simply can't, we're simply like, we're too proud. We do not recognize the authority of these people, and we do not want to yield. We know that these people are not any better than any other person. You know, they're in some sense they're like, they're even smaller minded, and we do not see their legitimacy to rule over us. We believe in people. We you know, we can criticize, you know, how society is, but fundamentally we're optimistic about human nature. We believe in humanity. So, you know, yeah, you know, about getting money in. So about getting money into. So the thing about Ethereum ecosystem is it was literally built, and you can see this in Solana now. Ethereum was built as this like platform where anybody can come along and they can build on it and they can create a new vision or a new project. And so that was a very big wealth generation event. You can see in Solana now, because Solana essentially, they play the same game as Ethereum, but they play it better. They're like more ruthless capitalists than Ethereum are, because Ethereum has all these like, you know, middle management, dead weight. Solana's just like, yep, useless, see the door, you're fired. So, but the thing is, like, anybody can come and they can like build on that, and so, you know, you can make a new project. So I think that's very important, which is, you know, for your community is like, okay, how does it benefit me? So there's most people, you know, like they're working a job, you know, they're going around all day long. You know, they don't have time to read like complicated white papers. They're just like on the metro, they're scrolling Twitter, and they see some dude, you know, like, I don't know, Andrew Tate, whoever, or Jordan Peterson, who's like, clean your room and you'll get pussy, or like, you know, do this thing and you'll become rich. And, you know, they're like, oh, sounds, oh, you know, that sounds good. Because, you know, like that's their main concern in life. How do I get a bit more money? And, you know, someone like me comes along and goes, oh, you know, technically, really, you don't want to have money. You want to be poor, but you want to be wealthy. And he's like, well, fuck that. No, give me $100. I'll airdrop. Yeah, I'll do some airdrop farming. So, you know, that's fundamentally like, you know, what we're dealing with. I don't want to like talk down on people. That's like, you know, that's their life. Like they're like under a lot of pressure. It's sad in some sense. It's like, it's not their fault. They're like also every day heavily bombarded with propaganda. And we want to break people free from that, but we have to give them a pathway. So you're like, okay, they're like, how do I make money with this? And this is what Ray's platform is really good, because he's literally like, oh, you come on the platform and you do OTC and you arbitrage out the controls that governments have on the movement of finance, and he's simultaneously solving two problems, which is you know, breaking down financial globalist control. And at the same time, and also like people building a Ahndres P2P network, at the same time, giving people the means to make money, to be able to look after their needs. That's really important. Some problem that we have to solve. Okay, Monero, it doesn't provide many many money generating opportunities. Not in the same way Ethereum allows teams to come and build technology, it provides opportunities, you know. And I'm not saying that I love the agorist, bizarre stuff. That is also really important. But I was involved many years ago in this Catalan movement called the Catalan Integral Cooperativa. And it was a very successful collection of 10,000 different cooperatives producing all different sectors of the economics. You know, you've got like transport, health, agriculture, etc. And they were also pioneers in using cryptocurrency for that network. But it was a internal network where people in that network were able to live completely fully from the network and not have to pay taxes. So it meant people were able to live better than they would otherwise, like earning an income and purchasing in a supermarket. So that's really important. That's also a big piece where we're building sovereign communities, we're building sovereign networks where people are able to operate. But a big problem with the CIC, this is what I think was a big mistake that they made, is they focused too much on agriculture. And the problem with agriculture is it's very low yield. It's not something that allows you to aggregate a lot of money. I think they should have focused more on high technology, which it's something that's more elitist because, you know, when you think about how can society be autonomous, you're like, oh, people need to, you know, grow their vegetables and have potatoes and stuff like that. But, you know, when I say, oh, you know, but actually people should, you know, build technology because it allows them to hustle more in this globalist system and get more cash, you know. It's like these two things go together and we need to think strategically about economics.
Now it's time. Yes. Now it's time for my 1 hour monologue. No, just kidding.
Right, so I just realized that I'm traveling with a handheld microphone, so I'm gonna ask the same question and then replace Amir's microphone with the help of the sound guy. He's gonna have to fade it in the mixer. Basically, my next question is, of course, you guys are idealists. When you think of adoption, you think of global scale, a situation where everyone is using these currencies which are private, fungible, or else scarce. But what about the people next to us? Because personally, I'm having problems even onboarding my own brother, who has all the technical understanding to use a wallet. He's been a computer nerd for years. He doesn't get the point of Bitcoin. And it's also our locals, I guess, people around us, friends, family, who reject Bitcoin and we're not even trying anymore after a while. So what do you think about this sort of adoption? Is it relevant, or should we only focus on the people who need this sort of currencies?
I say there's plenty of people who need this kind of service, but don't even realize that it's even possible yet. Because when most people hear about crypto, they're just thinking about shitcoins, and that's what they think crypto is. They don't understand there's this whole transmission part of it. But if they did, and we had the educational resources to show them how to rapidly build up an entire peer-to-peer ecosystem within a community, like say right here, and to build thousands of those and incentivize them to be a part of it early through kinds of referral programs or things that actually just make good marketing sense, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few ideas that have come out of the conversation about what the barriers are, but also what adoption is, right? So one of the ideas is, well, adoption means it's a kind of societal transformation towards the cypherpunk. This is a great book. You should get it. It's fantastic. First edition, only 100, $50.
No, 100 made.
100 made, and it's $50 a pop, right?
0.3 Monero.
Yeah, privacy book. It's got Monero. It's got all kinds of stuff. Frogs. You're gonna love it.
A lot of frogs.
A lot of frogs.
It is a work of genius.
So we're talking about like a kind of cultural transformation, right? A cryptographic sort of injection into society, or like this sort of cypherpunkification of society, something like that. I love that idea. I think the other idea that's come out is like, well, payments. You know, I think when we say adoption, I think what people mean is I want to just pay with my coin everywhere, right? And that's a cookie that we've failed to crack. And some of the barriers that have come up as well. There's powers that be that are smacking down people who could turn it on quickly. The other one is that there's a sort of spiritual or psychological or cognitive or mimetic sort of resistance, like we haven't been able to get the memes across. Yeah, we haven't been able to sort of properly market ourselves or educate properly. But and I think that may be true. But one of the reasons I got into Bitcoin was because as a libertarian, it was very obvious to me that people didn't care about freedom that much. You know, they care about the fruits of freedom. They don't care about what it takes to create and sustain freedom. They're just kind of like, most people are just along for the ride. And the reason I like Bitcoin is because it was an economic system that incentivized them to adopt a value system that they might not even care for, but they're living it because they get incentivized to do it, right? And so I think if we have to convert everybody to our cultural sort of beliefs, I think that's actually like very, very difficult. I think if we can create a product that's more useful to them, that should just get adoption, right? And what I see, just the final thought there, is that I don't see a lot of analysis and data-driven analysis on why retail doesn't stick with Bitcoin or crypto or whatever, right? Like you orange pill some merchant, you get them to download an app. The app is on the owner's phone, and then suddenly the owner's not at the store, and somebody wants to pay with Bitcoin. Sorry, the Bitcoin phone is not here right now, right? That's a software problem. That's an integration into a better sort of retail system problem. And there's a bunch of issues there that I could go into that I think are just like straight up entrepreneurship data on like what are the pain points for merchants, because merchants seem to want to accept crypto. It's just that it doesn't stick because it doesn't make 1% of people show up to pay, and then they never come back, and then the phone they have to update it, and you know what I mean. There's a lot of friction there that I think is just straight software.
I just think we should stop trying to chase like things like retail adoption. Like stop trying to chase like spending your Bitcoin at the coffee shop. Like what Amir's doing with DarkFi, like DAOs. Let's build something that you cannot build with the legacy system. Like, look at the internet, information distribution. Like, media is being just censored and filtered into worthless, incoherent garbage. Let's build something with Bitcoin or other things in this space that allow us to get past that. Like, just access to, content in general. Like, there are whole classes of content and information that legacy systems just will not advertise. They will not make available to people. Let's build platforms that disseminate that and make that widely available. Like, let's stop trying to just continue the 2013 meme of when can I buy my coffee with Bitcoin. Let's build things that people clearly want and need that are only possible to build in this space. Like, if we want actual adoption beyond people just investing in an asset, build new things. Build things that will actually reshape people's attitude and how they engage with society at large, instead of just fixating on small-minded dreams like retail payments.
Okay. Just short answer. I think we have to be targeted. And we have to, because that's how you, in the internet age now, is no longer about like big groups of people. It's about like sub communities. So your messaging has to be targeted to those communities. If you look at the presidential elections that happen now, that was how they did it. Like they would go to all these like communities. They've all got their own group of people, and they make a targeted messaging for that community. So. I think we need to use that strategy, and we need to do it well. We need to produce media, video, propaganda, etc. Could I ask if anyone in the audience also wants to give an opinion? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
We can use that for the Q&A part, I guess.
Okay. Sorry.
Sorry for interrupting this. It's just that I wanted to ask you something more direct, because I guess we scaled down. We went from universal adoption to local adoption or retail. But I want to ask you, each one of you personally, what are you doing to increase adoption? And what would you tell others to do to increase adoption?
Yes, well, I'm personally building a network state to make this happen and sticking my neck out, You know, really sticking my neck out. Not going back to the U.S. again while I'm doing this world saving money stuff. No sirree, Bob. I'm staying right over there in Dubai. And I hope you all appreciate that. Because let me tell you, I could never go back to Coney Island again. Well, maybe one day. Anyway, yeah, so I'm building this network state, and it's got a peer-to-peer marketplace, which works quite well. Works quite well. And it's got all the other things, a wallet that works. It's got a spot exchange, it's got this and that, but honestly, it's the only real service to get the marketplace right. Because the marketplace, you know, you can sell services on there, you can sell underwear and diapers, but is that really going to be motivating people to get into this? Because they want to pay for a latte with it? That's not what you call a primary concern. Primary concerns, number one, are making money, and number two, being able to move money around in a place you otherwise couldn't, because there's a nice margin there, which kind of all goes back to making money. So guess what? If we're going to actually get retail adoption, I believe I know the way to do it, and I'm doing it this way because I don't see anyone else focusing on the gold mine that is the world's first digital bearer asset. It's a $140 billion a year economy. Anyone know what it is? It's been there before crypto. It's available in every gas station and drugstore in the United States. What is it? Say it loud.
Gift cards.
Gift cards, yes, yes, yes. And did you know that 98% of all gift card programs in the world are run by two sketchy little American companies, Black Hawk and Encom? Even the name sounds sinister, man. Feels like men in freaking black scuba gear are going to come in with rifles. What the hell? Anyway. So there's a huge opportunity to disrupt this industry. And it's 140 billion. That's a massive amount of money. If you think about it, it's like all these loans that these businesses are getting from their consumers. They're still in store credit, but there's so much more that you can do with that. Now I'm happy to tell everyone here my roadmap live, but allow a gentleman to have a few secrets, please. Because to make all this work, you're going to need a lot of education. And I spend a lot of money on education. Simple things like even teaching people how to use 2FA. But honestly, the practice of arbitrage, of making money with a peer-to-peer marketplace is huge. And if there was a no one's gift card, which is available now, that you could buy right here with pesos, you could easily buy that and give it out to people, and all they could just onboard into crypto so easily. That's a great product. We all need to be thinking in terms of great product, number one. Number two, we need to have to build the balls to build a product that might get us in trouble, but will make a lot of money for a lot of people and will create a lot of wealth. So you have to be willing to stick your neck out a little bit in this game, honestly. If you're gonna, even if you're just going to write software, we see they are arresting software developers right now. We all need to accept this level of risk. If you don't have the balls for legendary mode, that's fine. You go take it down to just hard mode or normal mode and join the NPC battalions. But right here, man, you gotta be playing on legendary all day and all night, even in your dreams. Right? Damn right, man. Good God. Does someone have something to add to that? Okay, so besides, okay, so just one more thing. Like, let me just summarize all that, all those theatrics, man. How do you people deal with me, man? Yes, I have drama in my soul, but sometimes a man must be a bit more reserved. So let me be a bit more reserved and say, products, just think in terms of products. If you're a product guy or a product gal, come find me. I just met this guy, Swoops, fucking product genius, man. In 5 hours, this guy hacked together something amazing, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here for the product-based talents. Give me your Jedi powers, lend me your strength, and we will build a new world together. A new world is coming. Our world. That's right. Just so everyone understands, I've joined the orcs, joined them a long time ago. It's okay.
For the horde.
For the horde! For the horde!
So I just wanted to shout out the CEO of CoinCards. I'm not going to point to him unless he wants me to do that, but CoinCards been running for a long time right there. That's the man. He's been running CoinCards for a long time. Unsung hero right there. You got anything?
No, I think Amir and Ray have been killing it.
I talk about dark fi adoption. So one of the important things is having a good bridge. You know, where you bridge to is also saying, like, you know, what kind of community that you want to build around your software. So, you know, Monero is an obvious case. You know, Ethereum is like where there's a lot of liquidity, maybe even Bitcoin, you know, if that's also easy to do. But I was also thinking recently about USD Tether on Tron network, which is where like most of the world is like actually trading cryptocurrency. So, so having a way to people to bridge. Secondly, cryptocurrency, it enables us to do things we could not otherwise do. So that's what Ray was talking about when he said that crypto, it unlocks potential. It's not about buying a coffee. It's about you know, doing something, you know, getting around some, you know, kind of limit that exists. So that's what DarkFi is going to deliver. That's what DarkFi is, you know, in my small part, I'm trying to create that foundation that will enable us to, you know, mobilize on top. You know, I give an example. In England, they're putting people in jail for wrong speak. And the rest of the crypto industry, they've had billions of dollars, they've had a decade, and they haven't been able to deliver. So there is something wrong with how we're doing things. We need to change how we're doing things. Lastly, what products? Like, people don't care about your technology. They don't care about, like, you've got like the new greatest, you know, oh, we've got ZK algo that uses new unique pairing curves that are like, you know, using some fancy field, etc. Nobody cares. What people care about is, you know, what can I do with it? What problem can I solve? And again, I gave the example, you know, people going around in their life, you know, they're like, how can I get rich with it? That's honestly, like, I reckon most people, that's how they see cryptocurrency. They're like, oh, how can I make money with it? You know, but, you know, people who are a bit more enlightened about cryptocurrency, they understand cryptocurrency has potential. They're like, you know, like, how can I use this to solve a problem that I have? So that's very important. We need to be really hyper focused on solving problems. And when I say solving problems, I don't mean, you know, unfortunately, you know, the reason why we're here where we are is because the people that build the technology, they're an elite class, and they do not have to deal with the problems that people deal with every day in their life. And so that's why they end up building rubbish, essentially, because they're completely detached from the world at large. So, you know, we need to be really thinking. And when I say solving problems, you know, I don't mean that, you know, oh, I was trying to, you know, I don't know, like post on my social. I was trying to post on my social media. And, you know, it would be really cool if I could, like, syndicate from Instagram and Facebook, and maybe there's some app for that. That's not really what I mean when I'm talking about problems. When I'm talking about problems, I'm talking about, like, you know, we want to have a way to, you know, claim our economic sovereignty. We want to be able to get the message out of the truth and not be, like, shut down, not be put in jail, you know. We want to be able to organize a project and, you know, not like be heavily fined or like have liability, you know, like be able to organize amongst ourselves. So there is a huge, like, it's huge design space. And nobody, for some reason, in cryptocurrency, nobody seemed to, like, gone and tried to deliver these things. I literally go on you know, Twitter, and which, again, what a load of bullshit. Like, what a dead end. You've got literally privacy projects going, oh, join our Discord, check out our Google Docs. Oh, crypto, it's on Twitter. It's literally a dead end. It's kind of like, oh, we failed, you know, because we're stuck in these shitty proprietary centralized, you know, web platform. The web is even like the crypto dApps. We don't even have like a delivery mechanism or our own platform. We're like, oh, we have to use the web. Devs have to host the front end. They get sent to jail for making it. So it's like there's something very wrong where the kind of capability on one hand is like the capability to actually deliver useful things to people seems missing in some sense. And as I said, like I go on Twitter and I see crypto founders and they kind of go, like, oh, I believe that the future of cryptocurrency is like conscious AI agents, you know, forming. It's like, it's just fucking rubbish. Did you build any of that? No, it's just talk. But you don't even have chat app.exe. You don't even have, like, we haven't even built a chat app. And that's why you're using Discord. And then devs are getting sent to jail because of it. And then like people in England are being sent to jail. And the thing that they need the most is like a way to just communicate with each other. So if we're not able to deliver that, then what's all this really about? Really? So there is a massive design space. It's out there. It's literally, and we're literally like, you know, 10 years, 20 years ago, we did not even have the capability we have now. We have superpowers, literally. Like ZK proofs change everything. It's like we can really accomplish big things. You know, I gave the example of a chat app, but there is so much more cool things. Like we could literally build WikiLeaks decentralized. We have the mechanisms to have decentralized verification and authentication of information, and then anonymous auctions where people bid on that information and the winner is able to get that info. And you create an information marketplace. An information marketplace which, you know, deals in proprietary information, which completely destroys business models based around secrecy, completely destroys copyright industry, proprietary laws around proprietary information. A massive defeat to the power regime and a victory for the people. Like we have not, like, for some reason, we're not building that stuff. And I don't think it's because people haven't had the idea. I mean, maybe they didn't have the idea, but it's certainly not because of lack of capability. It's not because of a lack of resources. It's just like there's a cowardness, or there's something holding us back, and we need to break through that mental barrier. If we can get through it, you know, we can tap into something very powerful. And that's what he was saying, like, you know, we're not 5 years ago. 20 years ago, you know, I was telling people about mass, you know, facial tracking with the CCTV in London, and people were like rolling their eyes at me. You know, I was saying about literal conspiracies that were real, like where they overthrew governments and they put in dictators. That was on Wikipedia. Like literally, on Wikipedia you could go read it, and people were like, "Nah, that's conspiracy." They didn't want to believe it. It was, you know, it was just like the power system was so prevalent that people they would just not even bother to question it because there was no point. That's all changed. With the NSA revelations, people were like, whoa, they're spying on us? And it's like, yeah, we've been trying to tell you this for years. But now we've even got to the point where, you know, you say, you know, like the elites, they're extremely corrupt. They hate society, you know, and that's not controversial. Everybody knows it's true. Everybody believes it. And even the people that, you know, are apologists for this, they're like, yeah, but, you know, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, there was like this all-prevailing sense, like, yes, you know, this, you know, surveillance, tyranny, apparatus of tyranny, you know, controlling our lives, but we're powerless. and there is nothing you can do against it. It's like, you know, when I was talking to people in England about the right to bear arms, and people always go, oh, but the states, you should never use violence because the states, they have bigger guns and they have missiles, and it's just a very weak mentality, which is like, there is no point fighting back because you'll lose. And you know, that was 2 years ago, but that mental block has disappeared now, and now people are like, wow, we can actually change things. If we mobilize together, we the people are a power. So, you know, right now we've lived in history which up until now has done things in some way, has worked some way. If you made a company, if you made a project, you know, you would go to VCs who get their money from the central banks. You know, they're all like together, and you would, you know, bow down before, and you go, oh, please, please, master, like, you know, put some crumbs in my bowl. And, you know, you had to placate, and you had to, you know, say a certain thing, and you had to like, and, you know, like, projects, when they would do marketing, you know, they were like, oh, you know, we can't threaten anyone, we can't stand for any values, you know, we have to just be neutral. And this is the game that Ethereum tried to play. And, you know, in some ways, you know, they got, you know, in their bowl, they were given, like, from the system, from the master, like, you know, great wealth was bestowed on them. But they're like, in the end, it's like, you know, you're a gilded slave. You know, and there's only there's like always a barrier, a block. But then there's like, you know, the beast of nature that roams free, who like who's relying on his instincts, and, you know, is able to roam over huge distances and explore, you know, unexplored lands. And you know, Ethereum, they've kind of realized, you know, like, oh, this is what we gave up in the process. And there's like a you know, a last-ditch attempt to like halfway pivot, you know, like, oh, we still want, you know, we still want to play the game a little bit, but we also want some of this, you know. And so maybe, you know, when I'm talking about this, I'm being a bit extremist, saying, you know, no, we must stick to our principles, and we must like have faith in our ideology above all else, because that will give us the mental strength and the power to actually change things, to have impact. And so, you know, like, we live in a new age, and people have changed. And so, you know, if you want to play the game the way the game has been played until now, you know, fine. But the clock is ticking on that. And there is a new power, a big power, but none of the crypto projects yet have realized it. And this is why I'm in the Monero community. Because the Monero community is a community that has realized that. And, you know, we can talk about, you know, maybe there is some state level price suppression going on in the market, you know. But you know, like, Monero is community which is like, it doesn't shy away from that. So I think Monero is like, you know, it's got some power. That power is lurking. You know, when there's a window of opportunity, if we have, you know, built our capabilities, we're well placed to take advantage of that. You know, but we shouldn't just be laying there in wait, passive. We have to be active. We have to make that future. It sounds very abstract, but, you know, for example, the full chain membership proofs, which is the upgrade to Monero privacy, that is extremely important. But not just about that. You're like, okay, how do we build, you know, markets on Monero? You know, like, how do we think about wealth generation for our community? Like, how can we have teams, you know, in the ecosystem that are building? You know, these are things that we need to think about, and we need to be. And I don't want to say, I mean, he's gonna have a go at me when I say this, but we need to be pragmatists in the sense that, you know.
I just gotta grab a plane.
He has a flight to catch, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I give it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a quick question on yeah.
Brian _Trollz on Twitter. Follow him.
Yeah. So you mentioned technologies for communication. There's a lot of people in Bitcoin, a lot of money within Bitcoin that's going into Nostr. It's kind of like a public cryptographic sort of messaging system. What do you think about it? I have mixed feelings about it. I'm curious where you're at if you looked at it. It's not anonymous. Yeah.
Not anonymous. So.
It's a very simple messaging protocol that can actually be quite useful in a toolkit to build a decentralized, social information layer. I keep looking at it, but I don't know, man. Like, if you're actually going to build a functioning chat application, it's so much easier to do on other things. But I'm not an expert. But I want to use it.
Yeah.
That lightning, that tipping is really cool, man. Zaps, they call it. Is that what all you kids are into these days? Zaps on Nostr?
I go in every 6 months, check it out for 2 minutes,
man.
and never open
it. And it's just a Bitcoin maxi eco chamber, man.
Yeah, also Monero tips.
Yeah, there you go. There's a Monero Nostr, bro.
Now we're talking. So Amir, he made a lot of really brilliant points, right? We want to get this to retail. We really do. But what does that mean? Does that mean we failed if we haven't gone to that moms and pops on the corner, Not at all. There's so much to go around solving problems in OTC. That's really the best thing about this. Money needs to move around the world. So if someone wants to start a financial business, come talk to me. There's no business like the money business. I met a lot of successful people through this, and the best thing is it helps the money move around, especially in the global south. Consider that. For example, in Nigeria, it's a $60 billion a year economy for crypto, but most of that is all that's what's trackable, like what's on spot exchanges, right? But the peer-to-peer volume in Nigeria is literally 10 times higher than that. 10 times, imagine like $500 billion going through peer-to-peer, but it's not traceable because it's on WhatsApp, it's on Telegram. Only a very small percentage of it is on a platform like mine. Most of it just happens in person as well. That's the truth. So this industry is absolutely massive. We just don't see how big it is, right? Because we're still getting our price discovery from the exchanges. From these exchanges, right? That's the biggest problem. What if wherever we're getting that price feed for Monero now didn't just take the last price on all these centralized exchanges it was last traded at, but it actually took the peer-to-peer price, right? The peer-to-peer price of all the Monero that is traded for cash, Bitcoin, USDT, papayas, whatever. What if the peer-to-peer price was factored into the spot exchange price? What if we could rebalance out the liquidity there and gave the Monero price some real representation, advocacy based on the volume that we moved at, and we could do so because we had a price discovery oracle that was respected. That is the huge win that we have in this space. Once we can actually have our own price index for things, be it how much $1, how many bolivars you would get from it, or it could be for cacao beans or whatever. But that is actually what I see as the major win. If we're going to win the adoption war, the moment the world has an alternative price index for all other currencies that is separate from the centralized forexes, the moment we have that is the moment I would say we have officially won the peer-to-peer revolution. And you're going to see massive breakaways. Every nation in the global south is going to break away. Because the central bankers won't have this gun held to their head where they can destroy the value of their currency overnight with a few paper shorts on a forex, like they did to Egypt a couple months ago. 60% of the value of your currency gone in a single night because you said no to a political deal. Let's not forget the pressures that the leaders of whole nation states are under, honestly. It's not just retail, it's whole nations. Whole nations are suppressed by this system. And when we get a price index back, that's when I say we have won. That'll be a beautiful day. 21 days of non-stop celebration and partying, sponsored by yours truly. Because when we get to that point, believe me, we'll have some money to throw around. And that's another thing we have to do. We should leave a lot more money on the table. Vitalik never left enough money on the table. That's what they had to go to these, central bankers, VCs. CZ didn't leave enough money on the table either. Guy probably made $200 billion for himself. If he deployed even half of that money through the Global South, my God, it would have a transformative effect. But I'm seeing a lot more generosity by default right here in this community and the game mechanics that we build things. I think that's very important. Everyone eats. Everyone must eat. Not just the people at the top, the people that started it. Everyone gets a seat at the table with a plate with some food on it and a spork. Yes, a spork. They're efficient. Sporks!
Anyway, the question was, what do you personally do for adoption? I guess we got a bit sidetracked. But before we get to the Q&A, I do want to ask one final question. So I feel like the vibe or the sentiment of this discussion has been pretty gloomy, pretty sad. Let's try to be optimistic and say, what is the best case scenario for the next 5 years in terms of adoption? Where do you see this?
Great question.
The best case scenario? Best case scenario is the only case scenario, and it's what the chief works on every damn day. So it's going to take a little while to kind of heat up, but towards the end, about 3 years from now, you're going to see this little hockey stick, the hockey stick effect kind of coming in, and you're going to see it in very key markets, places in the Global South with a lot of alpha, meaning a safe place to operate with tremendous opportunities. Places like Namibia, Nicaragua. All of these places you wouldn't expect are going to start seeing some alpha cities popping up in the next decade. Absolutely. Places like Lagos as well. This is going to happen. Now, sir, the best case scenario, okay, you've got 20 cities, Dubai level in the next 10 years all over the Global South, Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia. Think about what that does to the mind, right? We have all these options open before us now. It's not just those poor, starving Africans anymore. These places aren't just going to be tourist destinations. They're going to be centers of actual growth. Research, knowledge gaining, understanding. That's the best possible outcome, in my opinion, and it's what's going to happen about 3 years from now. So it's going to start with all of the peer-to-peer volume spiking up like this, but mostly it'll be because we're actually finding ways to document it and get it on a ledger somewhere, connecting all of these various blockchains, all of these peer-to-peer transactions in a way that is private. But then guess what? Even the nation states of the world that have been sanctioned will start to use this thing too. So it's not just a bunch of poor brown folks or black folks or yellow folks. It'll be whole nation states using this clearing layer as a means of moving money between the Global South, especially with corporations. Because the governments often have their own routes, but corporations under them do not. Once this happens, you're going to see tremendous money flowing around, as in trillions. The question is, what's going to back up all this money, right? I don't think USDT is going to last for very long. Who here thinks USDT is going to last another 15 years? Raise your hands.
50?
Will last another 15 years, USDT.
Yes. 1.5?
You think?
I
1.5?
don't know, maybe. I don't know.
I'm a maybe. I think USDT is kind of like the runner-up for the dollar CBDC.
Yes.
They've kind of taken over the market, and they're probably just gonna get in bed with the government. And
They already are in bed with the government. They answer all of their subpoenas, right? That's what they have to do.
So,
Yeah, just say about the USDT, the two big things that the government of the US doesn't like is first anonymity, but secondly stable coins. And in particular, they really don't like USDT because the main power the US has is printing dollars. And now cryptocurrency people have realized we can print our own dollars. So they really don't like that.
yeah, they're in a tough position though, because Tether's buying bonds, U.S. bonds like crazy. They have more bonds than Mexico and more than in Germany. So they have, and the bond market's weak. So like, I think they've played their game well, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, those 3-month treasury bills that USDT buys up are really the main thing holding the US dollar up, right? So they found their little leash in the market. Let's respect them for that.
Yeah.
But honestly, we need Monero to dominate. And every day I think about liquidity. Liquidity is built around those special hacks with alpha. If you can identify all of the corridors with the serious alpha and build Monero routes to all of them, believe me, people will come on board. Does anyone here know how Tron, USDT took over on Tron?
I got a theory. Justin's son was friends with Binance, and they got Tether integrated really well.
No, Woody got actually Justin's son to attend Satoshi's roundtable, and that's where he met the people from Tether. And they became friends, and that's how they started using Tron because it was cheap.
Yeah, okay, so that's how it started, kind of behind closed doors. But I happen to know that, when it was just offered, right, I don't think there was a huge explosion in volume. The first community that really jumped on it was the African P2P traders, because they just needed a cheap way to send USDT because their margins were really thin for things like mobile money and bank transfers in Africa. So they jumped all over that and they went all in, and that's where, till this day, majority of their actual traffic comes from, by number of transactions actually, across all chains. So we brought two theories together.
How, who made the decisions to let's say bring that product to them? How did that happen?
Well, I didn't have anything to do with it actually. It was just these local groups of peer-to-peer traders that act as these kind of guilds. And they all have their specialties, and they all live in these kind of, not the biggest town in every nation, but usually the second biggest town. And they all know each other, and they just came together in a smoky room, like Creature from Jekyll Isle style, but they were probably having some Nigerian goat pepper soup and, good stuff like that, egusi soup, And they just made this deal and said, hey, let's get on Tron. Okay, let's just start using it. Boom, it happened. It was just a collective, tribal collective. Very natural. And that's how business usually develops, right?
Anyway, what's your prediction, your optimistic prediction for the next 5 years, Amir?
So the US is diminishing. It's in a slow decline. This Trump thing, some people speculate it's the end of the Republic and the beginning of the empire phase. But ultimately it's a signal of decline. And the world is moving into a multipolar reality. And this is great for freedom because there is going to be a lot more breakaway nations and a lot more autonomous territories. The Soviet Union was very good for global freedom. And, people that are some people are going to be shocked, especially Eastern European people. But the reason I say that is because there was the US and there was the Soviet Union, and if you were a country, in Africa, wherever, you could play them off against each other and get a much better deal. Now with this globalist regime where the US rules, there's only one person you can make a deal with, and they dictate the terms. So that's going to be the new political reality. In the US, the cryptocurrency people that are there, they've played the game, and now they're they've got a lot of money, and so they basically, a lot of them, their big reason why Trump got elected is because they were bankrolled by cryptocurrency people. But Trump is a political candidate, but he's not. He can't. Some things might change, they're talking about reducing the bureaucracy, but other things will not change. He's not going to downsize the military-industrial complex or get rid of the NSA. They're going to stay because they're the real people that rule the USA. So, to get into power, you have to make deals with people. And it's the same thing with those cryptocurrency people. So there is the SEC, Operation Choke Point. They were heavily coming after crypto people, and now they're off this. They've eased up the pressure. There's no longer the heavy breathing down our necks, which is great because it gives us time to build the parallel systems that make governments relevant. That is the focus. Governments or states are not our friend. Fundamentally, we've got cryptography, which, with cryptography, we can build systems to communicate. If they shut down our speech, we can have free speech. We can use it to, organize our projects, allocate tasks to people, make DAOs, have a treasury. We can use it to send money across the world, get paid, get rich, get wealthy, and they can't do shit to shut that down. So that's what we are into. That's our focus. So, as we build, as we really tap into and we realize what cryptocurrency is really about, it's not about, AI conscious agents on the blockchain, which is just to pump it for VCs, really, just so you get more hype. People like, stupid VCs are like, oh yeah, that could be like a moonshot, coin flip. I'll just chuck a bit of money in there, and if it by chance takes off, I'll make $bazillion, which is fake. It's all completely fake because the people get in early, and then then the second tranche FOMO's in, and then all the little shitty VCs, the followers, the little fish come in at the end, and they're the ones that are paying money to the people that got earlier in the round. And so it's just about like pumping valuations, because if you're a VC, you want to be in the cool exclusive club. And these big rich VCs that are like the ones that like lead, or like they've got so much money, they don't even care like really what they allocate into, because wherever they put their money is dictating what the trend is, what the fashion is. So the industry, the tech industry in general, not just cryptocurrency, is trapped into that way of doing things. And that's why cryptocurrency, still hasn't been able to give the tools that people need, to have free trade, to buy and sell any good online, P2P anonymously, to have information markets, to show people the governments are corrupt, to get the message out. We have not built that, and the reason we haven't built that is because we got trapped playing their game by their rules. And whenever we try to deliver any freedom-enabling software, they come up with this label and go, oh, what about criminal usages, enabling criminal usage, which is a label that they invented to judge us by, when themselves, they are the real criminals. They are the ones doing the real injustice. Freedom technology has not been responsible for mass genocides or deaths of people that have happened in the last 20, 40, 60, 100 years. It's been states, nation states, which have systematically gone and tried to destroy society, to divide people amongst each other, to liquidate the last vestiges of community, of any sense of nation or local identity. So, we as the technologists, our role is to help the people in their striving for freedom and sovereignty. So when we realize that and we're successful, the more that we're successful, the more that the governments who do not have any solution to the crises happening in the West, the more they're going to try and shut us down, as they're already doing. But the pressure will get even more intense. We've seen people die suspicious deaths. At what point, are there too many coincidences? When there's coincidences that happen more and more, and it becomes a dawning reality that, holy shit, this is real. This is a real high-stakes game that is being played. Just wait. Trump is in now, and he's not going to legalize Bitcoin mixers. They're not going to enable Bitcoin laundry services. There is still a limit. Really, it's there's the oligarchs of Coinbase, which is you can buy Pepe GameFi's Jerkbot token, but that's it doesn't change anything. It doesn't. It's okay, it's like, you know, people's lives are so bad that people are like, oh, you know, I'm going to like take my life savings and like, you know, spin it on a roulette wheel, and, you know, maybe I come out lucky and I get to escape this like Soviet, misery, economic misery of just like being condemned to a lifetime of like, you know, like we talked earlier about like the gilded slave, you know, like that's not the reality for most people. Most people it's just like, you know, abject slavery. Like, you know, it's just like, and like, you know, there is no reason that society cannot be well off. The reason why society is impoverished is it's like because of states and the elites who have engineered that to control people, because they, in their agenda, they believe that, that they have like this plan that is above us, above society. So that as that gets more, they're going to crack down harder on us, and that will make us, if we are aware, it will make us wake up and realize what they are doing, how, and like that there is this tool of freedom that, as Satoshi said, we will win a new front in the struggle for freedom. They try to forcefully take that out of our hands, and if we are smart, we will realize what they are trying to do, and we will grip it more tightly. We will become militant in our attitude. We will go from being mere activists to being professional revolutionaries, with single-minded, like seeing our friends put in jail, seeing people, other forms of high-stakes violence, and realizing there is something precious at stake, humanity. And, the more that we're successful in delivering that, this spiral continues, and ultimately, bare minimum, we've got to realize this is the destination we're heading into, and at the bare minimum, this room, we need to have $1 billion amongst us, a bare minimum. In actual fact, we should have much more, because cryptocurrency industry is about to take off, and if we don't use this to aggregate wealth, we're not laying the foundation, the groundwork, so that when the time comes, when the window of opportunity is there, that we're able to mobilize and seize that. That's coming. That's coming up.
That was amazing. I do have to pull the plug on this, otherwise we won't be able to finish the other talks.
Can I take a shot at that question real quick?
Take a quick shot.
I'll just take a really quick shot at it. So the question was, what's the optimistic scenario for the next 5 years? Hyper optimistic, but I think on the table, right? So Gensler gets fired in the United States. We just had a kind of like cultural and political rejection of this sort of nanny state to some degree, and that's in the United States, and that's really big. You get a friendly Treasury Secretary, you get a friendly, crypto-friendly SEC chair or lead or whatever. Best case scenario, they manage to take down the income tax, which takes down capital gains tax with it. That would be like incredible. It's being floated. I don't know if they have the sort of political capital to do it, but we got 200 crypto-friendly congressmen. One of the anti-crypto senators lost a seat to a pro-crypto senator. So the shift in cultural and political shift in the United States is at play for the next 4 years. If they can deliver some victories, the rest of the world, politically speaking, is going to start following, and is going to be a lot more open to it. And I think that's like, fingers crossed, that's where we're going.
Yeah. So quick summary. Quick summary is we joined the Orcish Horde. And, we don't really care what people say about us. We're just going to make this money flow. That's it. That's it. And when the money comes, it's going to be amazing. This is all about generating wealth. All those profits Tether is making, that can come to the people, and in a way 1,000 times bigger. Buy this magazine right here, buddy.
All right.
Go on, buy it now.
All right, without further ado, we got Seth for privacy, welcoming privacy refugees.
Thank you. I'm going to see if this can go higher. There we go. There we go. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I know we're nearing the end of MoneroTopia, which is a sad time for sure. But it's been a fantastic few days. I've only been here for 2, but they've been incredible. I just want to stop everything and give Doug and Sunita a hand of applause for the fantastic work on the conference. Yeah, I mean, this would not be possible without the absolutely insane, tireless efforts of Doug and Sunita. There's so much that goes into a conference that is hard to comprehend until you see behind the scenes, and definitely they deserve the credit, the praise for this. Grateful for the opportunity, and really excited to talk to y'all today, to start wrapping up the conference. And we have I think a couple more talks after mine. Rose is later, who's always a fantastic speaker. I have goals of getting as good as she is at oration, but this is going to be, I think, an interesting topic. I'm trying to take a different angle here than I've taken in the past, and ultimately try and kind of touch on the phenomenon I've seen in the Monero space, in the Bitcoin space, in the Ethereum space over the last really 6 to 12 months. And unlike I feel like many people who are hardcore in the Monero community, I'm very active in the Bitcoin community as well. Not so much in the Ethereum community, but I have kind of a different view into the behind the scenes. A lot of the people, the big names in Bitcoin and stuff, I've been able to have conversations with and build friendships with, and it gives me a unique perspective on what is happening in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And so today I want to really start to talk through why we're seeing this influx of what I call privacy refugees, essentially just people who are already crypto native. They already use Bitcoin or they use Ethereum, and they understand the need for privacy. They've been able to do it in the past on their preferred currency like Bitcoin, but things have changed. And in the last 12 months especially, there has been a massive shift. We've already heard a lot of people talk about these cases in detail. I know like Lola Leitz had a presentation earlier where she went really in depth on specifically the Samurai and Tornado Cash cases. She touched on Bitcoin Fog as well. So she has a lot more background on this. So if you want more, I can't go into too much detail on these, but we've seen over the last 12 months this massive shift in the ecosystem where nation states, specifically the US and a lot in the EU as well, have decided that the time is right to target privacy, to target financial privacy broadly. They've allowed it until now, but I think that people are waking up enough that they understand that they actually have to try and stop this while they still can before enough people use these tools. And so we've seen 4 things. I'll quickly kind of run through them and try to give you a breakdown because some of these may be new to you. Maybe you're really familiar with these. But Operation Choke Point 2.0 is a really fascinating one that we haven't talked about much in the Monero community that I've seen because we've had delistings long before Operation Choke Point 2.0 was a thing. Like we've been I guess the test case for nation states very early on is shutting down Monero on and off ramps. But essentially what Operation Choke Point 2.0 is it is a cabal of the US government working together to ensure that companies and exchanges cannot get any sort of banking services in the US if they touch cryptocurrency at all. But none of this happens through legislation, through public regulation, through public conversation. This all happens behind closed doors in emails that are private, that are not allowed to be shared, and essentially ensures that the on and off ramps, if they do exist, they have to be very, very, very tightly controlled and fit within the system that the US government wants. And for the most part, they don't allow them to exist. This has come to light even more recently as there's been FOIA requests filed that actually have revealed some of the emails that are happening here. I think off the top of my head, they had confirmed 30 different cases of this happening with exchanges or companies trying to get banking services and being denied because of the FDIC or the SEC essentially sending back channel emails to say, if you do this, it's going to be bad for you. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are far more cases. A lot of their FOIA requests are being denied or delayed intentionally so that they don't reveal the info. But that's been a massive effort of the government, and that's trying to prevent people from getting access to cryptocurrency at all. But what we've seen even more over the last 12 months is that governments understand that people using KYC'd exchanges, using cryptocurrencies that are easily surveilled like Bitcoin, that doesn't break the system. Bitcoin is quickly becoming just another part of the legacy financial system. It's easily surveilled, as we've seen in the Bitcoin Fog case, which I'll briefly discuss. It's not something that changes the paradigm as long as they can kill either or both of privacy or self-custody. And privacy has been the easier target because Bitcoin has no consensus level, protocol level privacy. It all has to happen at the app layer. And Who builds the apps? People who can be targeted. The initial case that we've seen with this is Samurai Wallet, who are really kind of they were the front runners of achievable privacy on Bitcoin. The way that they approach things socially was often quite poor, and I think is going to be problematic in their case as well. But technologically, they fit within what was supposed to be the legal paradigm of providing a service like this. They did everything by the book. They weren't doing anything, as far as we know, explicitly shady, but they were targeted because they were low-hanging fruit. It was a project that had said some stupid things on Twitter that could be used in an indictment, and a project that was providing real privacy to real people, not illicit usage almost overwhelmingly, but real people who needed privacy. So that case is ongoing right now. I think the next update in that case will be in December. But that was shutting down Bitcoin privacy. I mean, the moment that indictment dropped, we saw the entire Bitcoin privacy ecosystem just shatter. Lightning service providers leaving the US, Lightning wallets leaving the US, Wasabi Wallet voluntarily shutting down all of their operations. We saw just a complete shift where suddenly we went from achievable privacy, if really rudimentary and difficult to use, to nothing overnight in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And all it took was indicting 2 people. We saw how vulnerable app-level privacy was, and it's one of the things that I've talked about frequently. But within Monero, one of the superpowers of Monero is that there is no single developer or company or website or single app that provides the privacy that we gain access to. Like Cake Wallet, obviously, we are an app. I work for Cake Wallet. But you can use any wallet in the Monero ecosystem and gain the exact same privacy because it's consensus level. And that's an absolutely vital piece of this. To quickly touch on the other two, Tornado Cash, and all these are really a continuation of the war on crypto that started in the 90s, that started with GPG, that started with attempts by the US government to limit who could access broad personal privacy. And it's continued on now, with Tornado Cash being maybe an even more useful example of the government's attacks on privacy that isn't even app level. So Tornado Cash, for like a really quick primer, if you don't already know, was a Ethereum smart contract essentially that allowed you to deposit Ethereum and some other tokens, get a note that you could use to redeem those funds. It was entirely self-custodial. No one else had the ability to touch your funds, to move them, anything like that. And then you could use that note that you got, it's essentially a private key, to redeem those funds at any time and withdraw them. And there would be no cryptographic link between the deposit and the withdrawal. It was a very good privacy tool as long as you handled the outbound side properly. There are caveats because Ethereum itself is not private, but it was a very useful tool. And differently than Samurai Wallet, it was an immutable smart contract deployed on Ethereum. It still works today despite sanctions and despite the persecution of the developers both in the US and the Netherlands of Tornado Cash. And essentially in the Tornado Cash ruling, in the US we're still waiting on what's exactly going to happen with that case. But in the Netherlands, we've seen that the developer, I believe he got 12 years in jail, and they're appealing the case right now. But basically, the judge's ruling was that because he created the tool and because he knew that it was possible for someone in the future to use it for illicit purposes, even if he had no ability to prevent that illicit usage in the future, and even if there was not a direct profit model, it didn't matter. That he was liable for everything that happened with the tool in the future. The Tornado Cash case is the scariest one for me because it could be applied to Monero. Thankfully, especially in the US, we have much stronger free speech protections and code as free speech protections than in other countries like the Netherlands. But that one is wild, and that shut down the vast majority of privacy usage in the Ethereum ecosystem as well. Even though it's still accessible, the main way that people use Tornado Cash was through the web UI that the Tornado Cash devs and the company behind it ran. So it's still possible to use it today, but it's much more difficult. And then the last one is an interesting one because essentially the government in the Bitcoin fog case, which, like I said, Lolo Leets covered the details of that with examples of the tracing and how insane it was. But basically what the case cemented was it set precedent that you could be convicted with the primary evidence being black box software, a company who has deep, deep ties, a revolving door with multiple 3-letter agencies. They were able to get this conviction primarily on Chainalysis saying, these are his funds, even if they didn't have to prove how they came to that conclusion. They didn't have to reveal the code that came to that conclusion, any of the heuristics that they used for that. They were able to just claim it. The judge accepted it, and now we have precedent of a chain surveillance company essentially being able to send people to jail, which is a terrifying one. And it's building blocks that I see for governments to try and, I think Lolo Leets said earlier, to try and re-enable their ability to suppress dissent. A lot of these technologies have removed their ability to suppress dissent. Things like Monero are incredibly vital in being able to fund journalists, dissidents, watchtower groups. And if they can stop tools like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, from being able to be used privately, they can regain that ability to suppress dissent. And I think that's the crux of what they're trying to do now. And the outcome that we've seen out of a lot of this has been people flocking to Monero. And I'll touch on that a little bit more. The last thing I wanted to touch on is that within the Bitcoin ecosystem, the kind of the golden goose, the thing that was supposed to fix the scaling problems and the privacy problems of Bitcoin, I think many in even the Bitcoin space, many Lightning developers would say that Lightning has failed to achieve what was promised initially. It's still sometimes a useful tool. There are still some benefits to it. But what we've seen is that using Lightning in a sovereign way, where you actually run your own node, you actually open channels yourself, is practically impossible. The very advanced user can do it, but they're going to have a lot of drawbacks compared to a lot of wallets that are out there. And the privacy guarantees are not nearly as good as originally promised. And because it's so difficult to actually use it in this self-sovereign way, people have shifted to using more user-friendly wallets, which is understandable. Like user experience is often the majority of what people want over privacy and other things. They want the user experience, and if privacy is a part of that, it's a bonus. And so they've shifted to using things like Phoenix Wallet. And don't hear me wrong, Phoenix Wallet, I actually love the wallet. They've done a fantastic job, and they've built an experience with Lightning that, from a developer's perspective, is practically impossible. It's like magic what they've built. But unfortunately, the solution that they built sacrifices sending and receiving privacy for a better user experience. And so even in the case where someone is using self-custodial Lightning, most of the users are not gaining the privacy that Lightning is supposed to provide, because Phoenix has full visibility into where they're sending funds, because Phoenix actually computes the route of where their funds are going. And Phoenix has visibility into received funds, because almost all Lightning payments are only going one hop, and Phoenix has visibility into that one hop. So even when using self-custodial Lightning, usually they're sacrificing privacy as well. And then last, as we've seen how difficult Lightning is, how even if you want to do Lightning properly in a self-custodial way, you have to make sacrifices. People who want to build wallets with Lightning support have shifted to using either entirely custodial solutions like eCash. eCash is all the rage in Bitcoin and drives me insane, because essentially it says self-custody is not the important thing. We're willing to give that up for privacy, for expressive smart contracts, for other things. We're sacrificing one of the two pillars of freedom money that I view, self-custody, for privacy, but you end up handicapping yourself at the same time, because then you're trusting a third party to hold your Bitcoin for you. So either they're using custodial solutions like eCash, or they're shifting to these up-and-coming trust-minimized solutions like Arc or Spark, which we won't get into the details of how those work today. But essentially, Lightning has not panned out to be the thing that people can easily use to send and receive payments in Bitcoin while having strong user privacy. So all this adds up to a revision of a Saylor quote. And Saylor's one of the people that I hate most in this space. And I don't hate many people in this space, but he is an absolutely abysmal human being. And his aims seem to be to undermine the entirety of what we care about in Bitcoin and Monero. But he did have a good quote once, which was, he said, maybe you need a Monero. And what people in the Bitcoin space especially are realizing is that his quote was not right. They do need Monero. That has quickly become apparent that they can't get by with the tools that are available in Bitcoin today. Either they're giving up their custody to get what they want, or they're just not having any access to privacy anymore. So what I'm seeing in the space, and I don't have hard numbers to back this up, both because a lot of the people moving to Monero don't talk about it publicly, and because like a Cake wallet, we're I think the largest wallet in the Monero ecosystem for sure, and rapidly becoming a large wallet in the Bitcoin ecosystem. We deeply care about user privacy. So we don't have any analytics. I can't tell you how many Bitcoin wallets have been created. I can't tell you exactly how many swaps have happened. But if you look at things like what people are talking about Monero on like Bitcoin Twitter, that has gone through the roof. What influencers and well-known people in the Bitcoin space have messaged me or other people trying to figure out how to use Monero, what the best wallet is, how to run a node. If you look at coin cards, I'm not sure if Mike's here, but coin cards and a few other vendors who sell gift cards, they publish the stats of what currencies are used to buy gift cards. And right now, proxy merchants that sell gift cards are the primary way that people use cryptocurrency to actually buy and sell things. Those numbers, either Monero is the most used currency, even though it's drastically smaller than Bitcoin, or it's neck and neck with Bitcoin. at all of these merchants. We're seeing a massive increase in actual usage of Monero, despite price being strange, potentially suppressed. Who knows what's going on with the Monero price. But even with that, we're seeing continued growth. And when we look at the Cake Wallet side, like I said, I don't have concrete stats, but just in the little bit of stats that I do have from like exchange partners that we have, the overwhelming majority of swaps are people going into Monero. Like I said, I don't have exact figures, and I wouldn't share those anyways publicly if I did, but I don't want to know the details. But the vast majority of people, especially people who are swapping from Bitcoin, from Ethereum, they're swapping to Monero, and they don't seem to be going back based on the volume that we're seeing. People are fleeing to Monero in droves. Most of them, unfortunately, not talking about it. That's one thing that frustrates me the most in the Bitcoin space, is that you would be amazed what Bitcoiners love Monero and have long used it, but they self-censor because they're afraid of the Bitcoin maximalist mob. But there's a massive shift to people coming to Monero. So I wanted to touch on the why. I don't know exactly when I'm supposed to wrap up. Do you know how long I have? I just want to make sure I leave time at the end. But I wanted to touch on the why, because I think it's important to understand where people are coming from. But then I wanted to touch more on the what. Like, what do I see that we as the Monero community can do better? And I think a lot of times our focus in the space at large, not just the Monero community, is how do we onboard the people who are new to cryptocurrency? So the people who have no idea how to use Bitcoin, how to use Monero, we focus heavily on that. And I don't think that's wrong, but something that I've quickly learned being a privacy advocate, being a cryptocurrency advocate, is that the chances of you actually convincing someone to start using privacy tools or to start using cryptocurrency regularly without something else happening to drive their perceived need is almost none. I have very, very little success trying to evangelize using privacy tools, but people have these moments where they wake up and they understand the need, and then we need the tools to be ready for them. And right now we're seeing, especially in the Bitcoin ecosystem, people waking up to realize that Bitcoin is not solving the need for them to make payments, to have financial privacy. And so they're already crypto native. We don't need to teach them how cryptocurrencies work. We don't need to teach them about how on-ramps and off-ramps work. But what we do need is to better educate them about the differences between things like Bitcoin and Monero. Again, a lot of our education is focused heavily on nothing to Monero, like zero to Monero, rather than Bitcoin to Monero. So better education about that. Focusing heavily on how do people actually acquire Monero when they already have cryptocurrencies. The fiat to Monero on-ramp, as much, like, I love Havino, I loved local Monero. That was a absolutely fantastic tool that will, the shockwaves of local Monero shutting down will be felt for a very long time in the Monero ecosystem. But as important as those things were, we have a massive crypto native audience that are starting to wake up and understand the need for privacy. And their route to getting Monero is drastically simpler. Swapping between Bitcoin or Ethereum, et cetera, and Monero takes like 30 seconds. It's not complex at all. There are a lot of instant exchangers. There's better tools like Sarai coming. So shifting, again, how we talk about what does it look like to actually acquire Monero when you already have Bitcoin. And then the last one, my slide is incorrect here. The last one is actually, what do we do about the user experience in Monero to both educate people when they come into Monero and they create their first wallet on what the expectations will be, and then improving the actual user experience of Monero for the end user. So on the education side, the crux of what I wanted to get at, and I already touched on this, so I'll be brief, is really having better education generally. I think, like, I call out Monero.garden here. This is something that Ahndres created. I don't know if he's in the room, but he's one of the people behind MoneroTopia, if I'm saying that correctly. I never know how to say that word. But he's a fantastic person behind that, and he opened a CCS. He's created this fantastic education tool that explains Monero, explains creating your first wallet, explains sending and receiving in a way that's very approachable, that's logical in the flow of how you walk through it. And I would love to see not only more of this, but also more people contributing to this. Monero.garden is an open source tool. If you see something that needs to be improved, you can submit a pull request that fixes the issue or adds education on a specific topic. And these types of resources where I can just say, someone reaches out and they say, look, I've got Bitcoin. I really need something that I can spend privately, that I can actually have some financial privacy. We need tools where we can say, oh yeah, just go to Monero.garden. You're going to learn everything you need to know about Monero, and then just come back to me if you have any questions. We need more things like that, and we need Monero.garden to continue to grow and improve. It's already a fantastic tool. But outside of that, really the two main things that we can do on the education front is put pressure on the podcast, the influencers, the social media people that you love and follow, especially when they're already kind of adjacent to what Monero solves, to the problems it solves. Put pressure on them to have people on their podcast that understand Monero. Put pressure on them to talk about financial privacy. Put pressure on them to really discuss some of the vital things that will help to bring people into using Monero as a tool, not just so that we can say there's more Monero users or so number go up, but so that more people have access to Freedom Money regularly. And then the last one, and I think the one that's overlooked, is I feel like many people think like, oh, well, I don't have like 30,000 followers on Twitter, or I don't have a podcast, so I don't need to worry about this kind of side of things. I'm not the educator. But ultimately, we all have a sphere of influence. It could be just your family and friends. It can be your coworkers. There are people around you, and some of them are going to wake up to the need for financial privacy. And you can play a key role in that process of helping them to understand why Monero is useful, why they need financial privacy, et cetera, answer their questions. And so we each do bear some responsibility. You obviously know about Monero. You're interested in what it provides, and you're going to know more than the vast majority of people around you. So leverage the knowledge that you do have in your sphere of influence and share awesome educational resources like Monero.garden. So next, and this is the long time boogeyman in the Monero ecosystem, is user experience. I think we have come so far from when I first got into Monero in 2018, I think, where Monero GUI was the main thing that was usable. I think I got in just before Cake Wallet launched. Monero, I think, might have existed then, but the user experience of Monero has come a very long ways. So I don't want to do a disservice to the work that's already been done. It's drastically easier to use Monero now, both because of changes that have happened at the Monero protocol level, the consensus level, improvements in scanning, improvements at the wallet level, and how we present information, how we handle the 10-block lock rule, which I'll talk about briefly. But that doesn't mean that we should stop here. And I think there's a lot of relatively low-hanging fruit that we can make major improvements so that the experience of using Monero more closely resembles using something like Bitcoin. Now, without trade-offs, you're never going to get to the same point of when you open a Bitcoin wallet, what a Bitcoin wallet actually does is it sends all of your Bitcoin addresses to a third-party server, asks for a balance, and then gets that data back, which is abysmal for privacy, but that's the de facto norm in the Bitcoin ecosystem. We're never going to reach that without sacrificing user privacy in Monero, and generally that's non-negotiable for good reasons. But we can get closer to that experience. One of the things that I think is really important and I want to see more of is Justin Berman, who's sitting in the back, has done some really good work on enabling background sync for Monero with view keys specifically, so that we can do things like Android only, unfortunately, because iOS is evil. But you can do things like you can sync your Monero wallet in the background without actually having your private key hot. So you can have your Monero wallet syncing all the time. You can have it set up to sync when you plug it in and you're on Wi-Fi while you're sleeping. You can do a lot of really useful things to minimize the synchronization user experience hurdle. We're already working on this at Cake Wallet. We have some internal builds that we're testing right now that enable background sync. So basically you can just open your Monero wallet, do what you need to do, close it, go use your other apps, put your phone away, and background sync will continue on in the background until it's fully synced, and then it'll regularly check, do I need to synchronize anymore? It's very early, so we're not really ready to release anything around that. But that's something that is, I say low-hanging fruit. It's not easy from a dev perspective, but low-hanging fruit in the sense that we already know that it's a problem, and we already know how to fix it, and we already have the tools to fix it. So that's a very important one, because I mean, I can't even count the number of times I've seen here people come up to the Cake Wallet booth and they go like, why can't I send funds? And then they're synchronizing and they have to synchronize 30,000 blocks and they're on Wi-Fi that all the hundreds of us are on. And it pains me to see, but there are ways we can work around it. And I think we can do a better job in the Monero community of understanding that just technical improvements on the back end will not help people to use Freedom Money. Like FCMP++, things like that are so vital. But improving the user experience is going to help people to first experience Monero and decide, I actually want to use this, rather than first use Monero, run into one of the many user experience hurdles that exist in Monero, and be like, it's the barrier to entry is too high. I'm just going to go back to Bitcoin, et cetera. So another really quick one is just better education about the synchronization process. Like I mentioned, if you're coming from Bitcoin, you open your wallet, it's synced because you're just giving up all your privacy. We don't do a good job, and I will call out Cake Wallet, like the company I work at, as part of that. I think we can do a better job in how we actually educate users around what the expectations are with synchronization. Help explain to them, hey, this takes longer to synchronize because we're preserving your privacy as best as possible in a way that is not even comparable to Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies out there. Better educate on how long this sync status is going to take. Like one thing we do in Cake Wallet right now, we just show the blocks remaining. But what we've been working on internally is shifting that to what everyone is used to. If you're downloading something, if you're uploading something, if you're installing something, you get a sync status, you get a percentage, you get an ETA. Doing that is a big improvement because no one knows like how long is it going to take me to sync 30,000 blocks. But we can easily calculate that on the back end and give the person an estimate of what that's going to take based on their network speed, et cetera. So that's something that we're already working on, but that's another thing that I think just broadly within the Monero ecosystem, we can do relatively small things that drastically improve the user experience there. And the last one that is much harder to fix is the 10 block lock, the dreaded 10 block lock. Another issue that has been run into so many times while we've been here at the conference, where you have one output in Monero because maybe you just bought Monero once, you spend at a vendor, you find another thing that you like, you go to spend and you realize, okay, my funds are locked for 20 minutes. And you don't know why, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a painful problem. There are some solutions we can do on the wallet side. I hope that this is something that can be dealt with at the protocol level, because ultimately this is it's a security and a privacy feature. I hate to use that word, but feature right now in the Monero protocol to protect you against some privacy and security risks that happen if you spend funds too quickly. But this is an area where the brilliant Monero devs are going to need to just keep thinking and iterating and discussing how we can actually fix the underlying problem. And then last is really just helping to improve the on and off ramps to Monero. So there's already been a lot of discussion around this, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. We had a panel yesterday where we talked through the ins and outs of each of these approaches. We talked about pros and cons, trade-offs. But ultimately, again, shifting our focus from just the fiat to Monero side of things, which is always going to be incredibly difficult because who controls the fiat? It's the governments that ultimately don't want Monero to be a valuable tool. So that's always going to be difficult, and there's always going to be pressure on that, no matter how much work we put into things. But what is much, much more achievable, both from a technological and social level, is cryptocurrency to Monero swaps. This already works fantastically well today. This is the core of how Cake Wallet works, and why I think we've been able to attract so many users is it's a multi-cryptocurrency world. The vast majority of people who are in the cryptocurrency space are not Bitcoin maxis, they're not Monero maxis, they're not Ethereum maxis. They want tools that fit their need. And different things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero have different sets of pros and cons, different trade-offs, and they want to be able to swap between them to move in and out seamlessly. And this is one of the most powerful things about cryptocurrency that often gets missed, is just being able to swap between currencies in, like I'm saying, it literally takes 30 seconds to make a swap in Cake Wallet. Being able to do that compared to what the fiat system is like for swapping currencies is just, it's insane. It's mind-blowing. And it opens up a whole new paradigm of having different approaches to currencies that have a symbiotic relationship. So I think there's a lot of work we can do to keep improving atomic swaps, but atomic swaps to me are very much a resilient fallback. They're never going to be the norm. The user experience is never going to be there because you just have technological limits of you need confirmations on the Bitcoin blockchain, you need confirmations on Monero. There's always going to be downsides, but the beautiful thing with atomic swaps is that depending on how they're set up, they're practically unstoppable. And so if nothing else is possible, if instant exchangers are shut down, if Sarai never happens, atomic swaps are always possible. And so that's why I think we do need a continued effort around those. But ultimately, the thing that I'm most excited for in this space is Sarai. Good friends with Luke. He's been working on Sarai for a very long time. He's an absolutely brilliant dude. The ability to use a decentralized swap service like this, where there is no ability for a custodian to implement shotgun KYC or something because they didn't like the Bitcoin that you sent in. There's practically no ability to not get the funds that you expect. The rates, you're going to get exactly what you're told you're going to get. It's really the ultimate instant exchanger with much more decentralization, much better, even better user experience than a central exchanger in most instances. There is a downside of privacy in that the swap that you make is publicly recorded on the Sarai blockchain. So there are some downsides, but again, that's where Monero is immensely valuable. Publishing something like a transaction ID in Monero that was sent because you sent in Bitcoin reveals far less information than if you're going Bitcoin to Ethereum, et cetera. So something like that is really a vital tool for the Monero ecosystem, and especially for people who are coming in from other cryptocurrencies. Instant exchangers fill that need really well right now. and I don't want to harsh on them because they're fantastic. We have really good partners at Cake Wallet. Some of them are here, like Trocador and Exelix. They work really hard to support Monero and to ensure that we have access to Monero and to swap to other cryptocurrencies, and that people coming in from Bitcoin, Litecoin, et cetera, are able to swap easily. So they're doing a fantastic, fantastic job. But just like anything else that's centralized, they're vulnerable to nation-state pressure. So we can't rely on them. And things like Sarai are, I think, the beautiful middle ground between the centralized instant exchangers that we have now and atomic swaps, which are a necessary, resilient fallback. And then the last, just really briefly, expanding access to proxy merchants. Unfortunately, you can't spend Monero at most places. This conference has been awesome because I can spend Monero at practically everything within this venue. So many vendors, food, everything. But unfortunately, like especially for me in the States, there's nowhere. I can't spend Monero anywhere. But what I can do is I can buy gift cards. I can buy prepaid debit cards. Coming soon in Monero, you'll be able to buy reloadable prepaid debit cards with low KYC or no KYC, depending on the amount that you do. These things allow people to use Monero in the real world without having to sacrifice financial privacy by IDing themselves to a bank or something like that. So these are vital tools, continuing to expand access to these. Things like CakePay, which we have in Cake Wallet, things like coin cards, which is a fantastic service that I've used for years as well. Those are really, really important to allow people to actually be able to use these tools. But yeah, that's really the crux of it. When I present, normally I just go with whatever I'm passionate about and thinking about right then. So top of mind for me is I've been onboarding a lot of people who are in Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera, is what needs to improve. And so I wanted to talk about why people are rushing to Monero, what we need to do within the Monero community to improve what that experience is like for them. And hopefully that was useful. But we should have, I think, a good few minutes for questions if anyone wants to chat about anything. It can be presentation related, it can be completely unrelated, privacy related, whatever floats your boat, but happy to hear some questions.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello. Hi. I just wanted to say that the Cake Wallet is my absolutely favorite wallet. And I get all my clients to set up a Cake Wallet. And one of the features that I like best that you really appreciate at an event like this is you can go into settings, display, change currency from US dollars to Canadian dollars to Mexican pesos to Indian rupees to shekels to GB pounds, like that, and it immediately does the conversion. So to a market like this, someone says, well, it's 100 pesos, and the guy from the States has no idea what it is. They put in the phone, oh, it's that, but fine, thank you. So I really like the Cake Wallet.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been really I've been really blessed to be able to join the Cake Wallet team a couple months ago as VP of Operations. So it's been fantastic just getting to see the brilliant people who have been working on just wild stuff. Like, I think it's hard to comprehend how much the Cake Wallet team has shipped and improved over the years within Monero and outside of Monero for privacy. So that's one of the cool features too. Yeah, the ability, especially like for merchants, to hit receive, change to pesos, enter the peso amount. It's been a pretty smooth experience. That's been fun to see.
Hi, Seth. That was a really great talk. It was a great summary of everything that needs to happen in the ecosystem. So yeah, great job with that. This is more of a comment regarding the user privacy, user experience, just kind of the technical side. Just also some things to look forward to with a full chain membership proof plus upgrade. One of the things I was talking to Tux about this. One of the things that will improve is if I don't know, y'all might notice this whenever you send a transaction. Is it takes quite a while for it to spin up and actually sign the transaction and submit it. And the reason for that is because of the ring CT output distribution, which is about like 6 megabytes at this point. I'm not exactly sure. Yep. And Cakewallet might use the JSON, which makes it even bigger. But anyways, that goes away with whenever you build the tree locally on the full chain membership proof side. So that's something to look forward to. Yeah. Okay. And then sorry. And then the second thing was, and you mentioned the 10 block lock, which again, regarding that. I know Monero has pocket change, and that can be kind of iffy for privacy. But one of the things to look forward to, I think, is after that upgrade, if you do a pocket change like transactions, then you're going to be able to basically just get all the privacy benefit of that, and the availability benefit and none of the privacy downside of that. So. Anyways, yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see all this, and thank you for the talk.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah.
Sorry, I just need to chime in real quick. Yeah. Anybody looking to buy Monero with pesos or dollars, please come with us over here.
There's your on-ramp.
People looking to sell Monero, and it'd be a big help if people could help us settle these deals.
Nice. Yeah, a fantastic comment Jeff wrote. I am really excited both for FCMP, and I know you've been doing a lot of hard work on Carrot as well, which is a new addressing scheme that can bring some really, really useful things to Monero. So there's a lot on the back end, like I say back end, at consensus level, at the address level, that can really help the user experience, and I'm really pumped for that. I've been talking a lot to Luke about how FCMPs could work within Cake and how we can make the user experience a lot better. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
I just want to say two things. One, I think something that would really improve the sync time is stuff like the Nodo, or whether you can set up like a spare computer and then just have an exposed server, a node that you can connect to, and you can just trust it. That way you don't have to deal with as crazy of a sync time. So I just wanted to point that out. Like whenever you're onboarding like friends or family, I think it should be like a common practice in our community to say like, hey, I'm gonna onboard you, and here's the node. You trust me, you can trust this node. Because I mean, I don't think cryptocurrency necessarily has to be all about zero trust whatsoever. Like you can still trust like maybe your local friends or family.
Are you specifically talking about like giving view keys to a server so it does the sync, or just generally a remote node that
just
you
like
trust?
adding the node and then just marking it as trusted. That way you don't have to validate every.
Yeah, for sure. It helps a little bit, but it helps a little bit. If you can do it, it's certainly something, especially the more local it is, obviously you're going to get the benefits of lower latency and more access to bandwidth. So it certainly does help, and it also helps to reduce the load on servers that entities like Cakewallet are using, so that then Cakewallet users also get better support, or we don't have to spend as much money on that kind of thing. So it is a huge thing, and the old adage of you should run your own node is always true. It doesn't solve the sync process, but it should make it slightly better if you have good infrastructure and good internet. I think the specific thing around that's most exciting is when we have better view keys that don't reveal as much information, like things that I believe Carrot is trying to do that Jamtis was, with different types of view keys or scan keys. That will allow you to use a trusted third-party server without revealing nearly as much information, but allowing them to do all of the scanning and just telling you about the transactions that you've actually done in a way that's much more privacy preserving than today's model that's very rarely used of giving a view key to a third party. They get full visibility into everything you do in your wallet, and then allowing them to do the sync. So that's, I think, the biggest leap forward, but that has trade-offs just like everything else. Even with better scan keys, it still reveals more information than otherwise, but even that is an infinitely better privacy experience than Bitcoin with the same user experience, which is that's a massive win.
Yeah. Cool. And then my second thing was I actually think that something that would be really beneficial is there's still a lot of bad PR around Monero of like drug dealers, terrorists, whatever. I mean, it's the same shit they do all the time with a whole bunch of privacy and other shit. But I think something that would really both improve the PR and is actually a good product market fit is charity with Monero, because that way you can accept. Like, you don't have to fill out a bunch of paperwork. You don't have to do an ID. You don't have to worry about, like, getting some tax form back. You can literally just quietly send your donation, and it can go straight to them, no fees in the middle, which the idea of a charity having to pay fees to accept money to help people is really absurd in the first place. So I think kind of expanding on that charitable use case would really aid in both the PR and just be a really natural fit. You don't have to worry about tainted coins with Monero. You can just straight up accept it. And I think Kuno's great for that. And then also I do think it would be beneficial to form more official type relationships with charities, or like try to get more charities onboarded. And even to the point of like the community raises a certain amount of money to where we can say, hey, if you accept Monero, we have Monero for you right now that we can give to you, like 50 Monero or something like that. That's huge for a charity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Or open source projects too.
Yeah, and that's where like Monero's, especially the way that addresses work within Monero is just a huge win, because they can just paste an address. There's a reason why many open source projects accept Monero for donations, because all they have to do is paste an address in their GitHub README, and anyone can pay them around the world privately with very low fees. It's a fantastic tool, especially compared to what the other options are right now. So I think definitely leaning on that. I think the other thing that I would just add to what you mentioned is a lot of the legwork needs to happen among us of telling real stories about how Monero is useful. If we let the narrative be set by nation states or news sites that are closely
Corporate
intertwined
media.
with nation states, if they get to set the narrative, they're going to easily be able to tell the story that Monero is something that's only used for criminals, when most likely Monero is overwhelmingly used for completely licit, above board, good things.
Yeah.
And yet that's not the story that gets told. And I think a lot of that onus is on us. I don't do a good job of telling real life user stories. And I think generally in the Monero community, we don't have that mindset of how do we talk about how people are actually benefiting and using Monero. And that's something I think that we can really improve on as a community, and I can improve on personally as well.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thanks.
Just really quick, friends. At a certain point, we're going to get kicked out of the dome. So, and they're actually going to come and take all the audio equipment. So,
Do we need to wrap?
So, yeah, we just need to kind of wrap it up here.
Okay.
Go ahead and,
I'll try to make it brief. As a follow-up to your last question, as we all know, there's been a series of delistings in the European community, EEA, etc. It has in any way Cake Wallet been impacted? And also, as far as you can say, what have those impacts been?
Yeah, I mean, right now there haven't been any impacts to my knowledge. Like I said, I am relatively new, but to my knowledge, we haven't been impacted at all. Thankfully, there's still pretty good protections around if you're purely a self-custodial wallet that does not perform any transactions on the behalf of your users, that sort of thing. So we haven't had any impacts, but obviously we'll see, and there's a reason that we need to continue fighting strongly for self-custody protections, for free speech protections, etc. So, yeah.
How about with respect to trading?
Yep.
Have you had any problems with respect to trading, swaps, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, no, not really. Thankfully, we've been relatively unaffected. Like I said, the fiat on-ramps are the most problematic ones. And so, like, you're limited depending on what jurisdiction you're in on how easily you can go from fiat to Monero within Cake Wallet. Because obviously our partners have to comply with whatever the regulations are in your jurisdiction. But thankfully, no major impacts.
So you're still doing Euro to Monero?
I believe so. I haven't tested it myself, but yeah, we do. Yeah, DFX is, I think, our provider in Europe, and they're a really good partner. So I think we need to wrap here, but just for others who have questions, I'm going to step right. I'll probably just step right outside here. If you want to chat, come over. No pressure. But I'll just hang out there for a little bit and chat with people after all. But thank you all so much.